So welcome to episode 3 of Spatial at UNCP. I'm Jesse Rouse from the Department of Geology and Geography.
I'm Nathan Philippi from the Department of Geology and Geography.
We have a voyeur, I guess, this week as well. And this week we're going to be talking about physical geography and where we find physical geography data and how we get that into ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online to be able to use it.
And some clipping, I guess, too, right? We're going to introduce clipping.
Yeah. Whatever you tell me to do.
Is part of it.
Yeah. So what do we mean by physical geography data, I guess? Would be a good place to start.
Natural Earth, right? Natural Earth. So water sources, geology, what else? Forests, wetlands, anything that is natural Earth, natural, is of a part of the Earth, not humanly created.
Though it could be human impacted.
Human impacted, yes, but not humanly created, right? Completely.
I think the people who live in San Francisco would argue that they live on soil. I mean, they're wrong, but they would probably argue that.
Did they make their land by dumping their garbage and building on top of that, sort of like what they do in New York?
Of course. And Japan and other places.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What are some? Yeah.
Those islands.
Amsterdam.
So,
though they're just using sand for that.
Did you know that the Netherlands have stopped draining what is that? The Zuiderzee?
Really?
For land? Yeah, a couple of years now they've stopped that land reclamation. They felt it was too much of a negative impact on the environment.
So that means they're probably no longer going to build a mountain in the eastern portion of the country anymore.
If an anthill shows up, that's a mountain.
I don't know. Those dikes are pretty tall, and the levees.
Yeah.
Wait, the dikes are in the levees. Get that backwards. So
the
levees are.
Thing? Isn't a levee a dike?
No.
Oh.
The dikes are the things that let water through the levees. It's a whole engineering thing. So, in terms of data around here, where can we go to find physical geography data that we're talking about this week?
Any map is always a good starting point for data for North Carolina, of course. And again, remember we talked about this in one of our earlier videos that pretty much every state has their own data web base. So if you're working on a different state or region of the United States, you can always tap into their databases. It should look pretty much the same. What do you have there?
This is the geology for North Carolina, and some of them do use the Esri. More and more are using the Esri interface. Some of them still do their own interface. So, for instance, West Virginia, I know, still has their custom interface. So there will be some differentiation depending on which state you go to as to what it'll look like. Whenever we do look at
new for NC1 map, I don't know when they put this up, but it used to be really clunky.
Yeah, they transitioned over to the Esri open data portal interface, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago now. So whenever you go there, again, you get an overview of the data that includes everything that's going to be in the attribute table. You can look at various aspects of that attribute table itself, as well as if you want to be able to use these things online, as we'll talk about in future episodes. They'll give you links to being able to access this from your web application. But for us, most of the time right now, we're still focusing on download and going to shapefile for these vector data sets, which again are the discrete data that we can utilize. Remember that to get into the data, we have to go through and unzip the data. So once we download it, we can either use the extract all, or we can simply select it and copy it to wherever we want to. So if I just wanted to move it to my D drive, I could just drag and drop. And now I've got to go and delete that.
when you're viewing that data tab, that's the same information that you will be seeing underneath the attribute table when you right click on that in ArcMap.
Yep. So if we
That there's filters up on the top of that. Can you pick and choose what data you want from that? I've never seen that before.
You can, but these are really more for things like selecting a variable that you want to see.
Nice.
And it'll just see that one. So it's not as in depth as some other things that you can do. Of course, once you have it into the software. So, for instance, if we wanted to do a search in here, so I brought up the data table down here, and I wanted to go to selection, and I had a specific attribute, so I'm going to say that I want it to be part of the Blue Ridge belt. So I'm going to go to belts. Oops, I think I went to the wrong file. There we go, geology. Then I find belt equal, I'm going to get all the unique values so I don't have to type. I'm just double clicking to bring those down into this box. And whenever I click OK, we're going to get a selection. If I turn that layer on, we'll be able to see those areas that are in blue are in the Blue Ridge belt. So, there's a lot more you can do in terms of querying that attribute table once you get it downloaded and into the software.
Nice. And that comes in handy when if you want to focus on a specific area, or if you want to, if you're looking at your map and you can't quite put together what the colors are showing, or for instance, a lot of that geology, there's a lot of exotic terrain areas, and there are a lot of little different small color regions within that. So you can always click on that, and that'll tell you what that information is too.
So these are the different inclusions that he was talking about.
Yeah. I think that big circle one in the orange up there, up in the upper, was it right? That right there, I think that's the Grandfather Mountain.
Oh, the Dolomite area?
Yeah.
Seems a little far.
I'm not a geologist.
What next?
It's a rock.
What next?
What next? Well, let's see. How about the river basins? Or no, what did we bring into major hydrology is what we got. Yeah, the lakes and rivers.
Okay, so that was also from NC1 map, right?
Yep.
So major hydrography. This is giving you a combination of items, but it's mostly from the National Hydrologic Dataset, NHD data, which provides you with lines for rivers, polygons for lakes, ponds, and man-made water sources, those type of things.
Human-made, don't be sexist now.
Okay. Anything else about this? No? Okay.
Not from that page. Now, when you're making your map, and one of the nice things about the major hydrology is that it includes the outer banks and the inner coastal waterway on the side. And if you notice, there were lines, county lines associated with it, and you can simply turn that off by turning off the I believe it was the outline for the water and the layer for the hydrography, right? Isn't that where you turn that off?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and then you can always drag it up above your county lines so it doesn't, if you want your water to look more natural.
Oops. I dropped it in the wrong place. There we go. So if you don't want to have county boundaries in your water?
Yeah.
But I like to have county boundaries in my water, so.
Oh, okay. I find that pet peeve of me.
Well, then I'm glad I can trigger you today.
Yeah. You always do one way or another.
Okay, so now we have geology
Biology.
and the water on top of the geology.
Pretty.
We're using a county data layer also from NC1 map.
Yep.
Last time we pulled it down from the national map. This time we're using NC1 map.
And keep in mind, if you bring in layers and you have them in a different folder, you can just copy those layers into the new folder that you're working with if you don't want to add on to a previous file. So you don't have to continuously look up and find county layers, for instance. You can just move them from file to file, copy them from file to file.
Or just leave it in one place and just remember that's where you kept your county data.
Or, yeah.
However if you want to, I mean, we can get into, in the future, we can go into different storage formats. I like to keep a large folder where I have different projects. I know you like to keep a project per folder. So we can talk about the pluses and minuses of those because they both do have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
I end up having lots of different copies sometimes in different folders anyway, but.
Yeah, me too. I have.
Okay.
The problem with it is I usually forget what you've already downloaded. You end up getting it anyways. And I think what we did was basins, didn't we? Didn't we do the water river basins?
We do also have the river basins.
We got that off of ArcGIS Online. Were you going to do the background?
Well, we have the watershed. So here's the watersheds in ArcGIS Online itself. And of course, I added it using the Add Data tool, add data from ArcGIS Online, and just looked for NC Water. Should give us a lot of different options. And here was the NC Water Watershed, or NC1 map watershed. So I added that, and that's this layer right here. And I'm going to turn off the counties so you can see the watersheds. And then we have one last layer in here. Where did we get that from?
What is the background? We got that from Natural Earth.
Okay, so again, last time we used this to get some of the cultural data. This time we're using it for physical data. What
scale are we at?
I believe I used the medium scale since we were going to be downloading a large area. And
we're in vector.
Oh, raster. That's what it was. You're supposed to catch those things.
I do that too. I wasn't paying any attention.
So this is the shaded relief, and then just brought that in. It's based on elevation data, and then basically lit from the northwest, which is odd. You would think that since the sun never goes to the north of North Carolina, it would, we wouldn't use a northwest angle for the sun, but we do whenever we create GIS. It helps give us the perception of mountains in the direction that we expect them. If we actually light it from the southwest, it inverts it. It makes us think things that are higher are actually holes. So it's an odd perceptual thing that leads us to do odd lighting whenever we create 3D data sometimes. So there's our shaded relief or elevation data. It's a little bit transparent just so we can see our data through it and have it on top still. It gives us a chance to recognize that the geology up here is in the mountains. Same thing with the watersheds, as we'll see in just a second. Did you want to clip this before we start talking about the watersheds?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the...
No.
Okay. So one of the ways, and we'll talk about this again whenever we go back to the social data, where we have counties outside of North Carolina and that data, one of the things we can do is limit the focus of the map to just one data set. In this case, I'm going to use the county boundaries.
So you right-clicked on layer to pull up your data frame properties.
Yeah, I double clicked, but you can right
Or double
click
click.
or you can double click. So it's one of those places where you can get to it multiple ways.
Yeah. And it's
Under
the
data
data frame
frame,
tab.
I've gone to clip to shape. I specified
Because you're just doing the states.
so my county boundaries layer, and
Do the pull down. So never mind.
so they can see what else is there.
Yeah. Because when you click on it, you're like, oh my goodness, there's all these words that are there. What do I pick?
You pick the layer that you want to use as the extent.
It was the template. In other
So,
words, what you're going to cut out.
yep. And once we have that, I'm just going to click OK. And as you can see, everything that is outside of that county boundaries layer is now gone, and I've also applied a border, a black border, to the entire area that is that extent. So if I bring in data that's outside of that, it's not going to be visible as long as I'm clipping to this area. So this is only useful if you don't have external data that you want to show.
Well, you can still use a background with another lower layer with counties and states on it, right?
But it will not show. The only thing that will show is right here. So for instance, if I go to add a base map, I'm just going to go with dark gray. Oh, apparently it's going slow today. Oh, there goes the internet. So there we go. It's only going to show you what's inside that boundary.
Because it's actually like if you cut it out of a piece of cardboard, that all the white is the cardboard, and what you cut out would be the state.
Yes. So that is clipping data. Now, what did you want to do to talk about the, what was it? Oh, the watersheds. You're going to make me do that, aren't you?
Oh, that's right. Color them, like the Cape Fear and the well, you pick the ones that you like the best. What was it? The white, the new one, Cape Fear.
So whenever we look at this data, and in fact what I'm going to do is, just to make things a little bit cleaner, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste another copy of it just above. So right now they both have the same symbology, a thin black line. But for the new one I just added, I'm going to change the symbology from a single symbol for everything, where it's just a black outline, to unique values, and those unique values are going to be the name of each of the basins. And I'm going to just select a few. I'm going to select the Cape Fear and the lumber, because of course those are the ones that have direct impact to me, and then I'm going to select the two that are right next to that, which includes my favorite, the white oak. So if we added these as it is, it's going to color them in. But we just want to be able to see the boundary. So we're going to go to the fill color, unfill it. I'm going to stick with green for this one, make it a thicker line. And I'm just going to do that for each of these. I'm going to give it a new color, make it a thicker line so that it stands out.
Then when we go into more of the social stuff, we can demonstrate how we can change the symbology of those lines to make them dashed or dots or whatever you would like. That's a whole nother key, I guess you could say.
So I took the white oak out, so you can see that one's missing, but here's the noose, here's the Cape Fear, and here's the lumber. So you can see those three watersheds, and of course where they're impacting. Next one over is going to be the Yadkin PD, which goes all the way from the mountains down. I believe this one was the Catawba, is that right?
Yep.
And if we want to know what they are, we can use the identify tool. That's this blue circle with an eye in the middle of it. Click on one, and it'll bring up the details of whatever the topmost layer is by default. But you can also change that to get all the visible layers. So if I change it to all visible and click, we're going to get the county name, we're going to get the height, or whatever the value is for this shaded relief. So Cape Fear for major basins. That's the only one I have turned on right now. So if I turn on something else like counties.
Yeah.
So there we go. Now we're going to get information for all of these layers. There we go. So we have the Cape Fear, it's in Sampson County, and the geology is KB. And I can click on that to find out more information about the fact that it's Cretaceous, coastal plain, sedimentary, Black Creek Formation, etc. I don't know, what else did you want to highlight this week?
No, that's about it, actually.
Okay. So since we have another person here, I'm going to...
Hi, other person.
Hello.
I don't remember. Do you go by Catherine?
Catherine.
Okay, so you go by the full thing. There's no abbreviation. I couldn't remember.
We'll call you Kathy.
That won't get my attention in a crowd.
There you go. So, what do you? I mean, as a someone from environmental science, biology, who of course uses a lot of physical data, what kind of data do you look for regularly, and where are some of the places you find it?
So I'm often looking for land cover, what type of forest, what type of mosaic between forest and urban, suburban, exurban, etc. A lot of times I've been in the strange position of somebody saying, I've got all this data, what do I do with it? And I'm not entirely sure where all they've gotten it from. Also gotten it a lot from county databases. So it's actually been helpful this morning to see the NC1 map and that sort of thing, because I hadn't twigged into that one yet, and it looks very useful. So I've done a lot of stuff in Forsyth County, which is up on the Piedmont, and they've got a Geodata Explorer thing for the county that I've used a lot.
There are a lot of counties in North Carolina that do a really good job of sharing data. Robeson County doesn't have a lot of folks tasked on that particular project. So while there is a map for folks to go and check for Robeson County, it's really more for parcel information and basically tax assessment.
Yes, that can be very useful at times, but it has its limitations.
Yes. Doesn't really help us as much with the physical geography.
No, I was trying to do the physical geography of a 183-acre park that had 7 landowning entities, so I needed those data
Yes.
at one point. But yes, there are limitations there.
Same map as we did in previous weeks in ArcGIS Pro. And again, we'll bring in some more ArcGIS Online in future episodes. Mr. Philippi, anything else?
No. That covers it from my end.
Okay. Catherine, did you have any questions for us this week?
Not at the moment. I
Okay.
got several of them answered, which was some of where you're getting data, which is kind of what I was after, so that's helpful.
The answer is anywhere I can.
But when you're told, it's always nice when somebody else mentions it. I've wasted days literally looking for data.
Yes, been there.
One thing we didn't mention that I do want to make sure that we do before we leave is for physical data especially, there is the NRCS or USDA, depending on how you look at it, Geospatial Data Gateway. So the NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, maintains the Geospatial Data Gateway, and of course they are part of USDA. But you get a lot of data from the Farm Service Agency and other USDA agencies as well. And this allows you to go through and look for data by state. I jumped to the wrong state. We can come down to Robeson County and move that over. It is literally an interface from 1999. That was the last time this interface was updated. So it is a little.
ArcMap mapped things by typing in map E.
Yeah. So it is a little bit. It's not as user friendly for newer users, but for those of you who may be used to older websites, it's actually maybe a little bit easier to get through. But you can get soils, as you can imagine, from the NRCS, but hydrologic units, hydrography as well.
Nice.
And that's a great website if you are looking for physical data from climate to soils.
And that Tiger data, scroll up or down, there it is, up. There it is, yeah, under transportation. Tiger data, that's just the U.S. Census Bureau's name for their GIS data. So if you ever come across anything that says Tiger, don't be disconcerted. Don't think that it's another software or anything like that. Well, when I first saw it years and years and years ago, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can use this or not. But it's very usable data. It's just developed by the U.S. Census.
Yeah, and
it's vector data.
Yeah, it's the data that is used for planning the census and making sure that the census workers, as they're going out and polling individuals, that they're going out to the correct places and that they're breaking things up uniformly. So it gets updated every 10 years, as does the census, but it's about 5 years before the census happens or 5 years after, depending on how you look at it. And speaking of, if you're watching this and you haven't filled out your census, go. It's available online this year. Just Google census and you will be able to fill out your census for the year. But you should have received a packet in the mail that also includes a code. So if you have that packet, use that. If you don't, just go to the census website. North Carolina is currently running 33rd or 34th in terms of returns. So we want to do much better. And Robeson County has historically been a low return county as well.
It was the first thing I did during quarantine, gave me something to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Normally this time of year would be seeing census workers out and about beginning to do the field work, but that's a little bit delayed this year.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you, Catherine, for joining us, and thank you everyone else for watching the recording, and we will be back next Wednesday with another episode. And yeah, we did take off a week to recognize
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter and the strike for STEM and other hashtags that went along with it. So hopefully everybody was keeping that in mind last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so how do I...
Bye.
Oh, yeah, that. Bye.